Chi stance and the cat stance are pretty easy to accomplish. What I want to do is detail the bow stance. This stance is the most frequent stance in the Tai Chi Chuan forms, and it's also the most important one. I talked about the criticality of having a good stance, because if you don't have a strong base, then you cannot relax in the upper part of your body. So what I want to do is, first of all, ask you to invest in a couple yardsticks. This is going to be one of the most important tools you can give to yourself. You don't really need a jifok. You don't have to get special uniforms or special shoes to do Tai Chi Chuan. But when it comes to training yourself to do proper bow stances, especially when you're moving from one bow stance to another, it's a good idea to get some diagnostic way of seeing if you're actually cheating yourself or you're actually hitting the bow stance the way that you should. So before I detail the bow stance, just a point of note. When you stand in a cat stance, one foot's 45 degrees and the other foot is straight ahead, whether you're on the heel, the ball, or the flat of the foot. So it's interesting to me that the bow stance is the same configuration. In other words, one foot will be to the corner, which will be the back leg, and the other foot's going to be straight ahead. So the bow stance and the cat stance both have the same angles, if you will, of the feet. The back foot is at a 45-degree angle if I'm in a cat stance. It's also at a 45-degree angle if I'm in a bow stance. Now, one of the principles, which I'm not going to really read right now, but principle 3 talks about if you lose your power, the defect is in the waist and in the legs. And what Yang Chen Fu was talking about there, the word losing power can also be related to loss of balance, because if you don't have a good bow stance, you'll start to waver, and any power that you're trying to generate, pushing your chi through, is going to fall apart, because you're focusing all of your attention now on your balance. What happens is if you don't practice a good bow stance and you just step any old which way you feel like it, you could end up with a narrow stance like this. And I call this walking on a tightrope. This is where Yang Chen Fu was talking about the loss of power, because now I'm struggling just to hold my stance here. So the way we're going to use these tools is you're going to establish your Wu Chi stance. Now, just as a quick reminder, we established the Wu Chi stance. Your own body will give that to you. Spin these out and straighten them like you're on railroad tracks. Then take the yardsticks and put them in between your feet on the instep. Now, this particular drill is going to force us to take a proper stance. And what I want to do is I want to isolate every change of position so that we can hold to the principles. Mainly right now we're going to concentrate on just principle 4, separation of yin and yang. We're going to start with our knees slightly bent, and I like to call this a Bruce Willis drill. Alright, so I'm going to say lock and load. Now the purpose of having this configuration is to force me to keep my center line straight ahead. When you move in Tai Chi Chuan, your center always leads your movements. Right now I'm going to lock to my center. When we do silk reeling, I'm going to talk about how you lead with a center. But since we're talking about really fundamental, basic baby steps in Tai Chi Chuan, we're going to lock these things together. So this particular drill, we're going to work it like this. I'm going to shift all my weight to one leg. And I'm bent in the knee, all right? It's important for me to stay low. And I'm going to test this. I want to prove to myself that if I pick this foot up and put it back down, you'll notice that my body didn't move. So this is the awareness you have to come to. If you pick this foot up, and I call this a test step, and when I say put it back down, putting it back down does not mean to shift and put it back down. Otherwise I'm back to a Wu Chi stance. This is why you need to do these other drills I showed you earlier. I need to build strength in this attachment. So when I shift over to this leg, I'm going to make sure this is my substantial, my yang leg from principle 4, and I can pick this up and put it down, and I'm still over my left foot. From here, we're going to turn 45 degrees to the corner. I want to test again right here. So pick this foot up and put it down. Again, when you put it down, does not give you permission to move to it. Right now, we're still trying to stay focused on a young leg, rooting through my bubbling well point into the earth. So I'm going to pick this up and put it down. Now I'm going to shift my weight, but I'm going to hold the corner. That's why I wanted to lock myself to my center. I'm going to hold this corner. Now I've got all my weight in my right leg. This is where we're going to take a step forward to establish the bow stance. Feel free to look underneath your arm, because it's really important that you see when you bend your knee and pull the knee back as you extend the heel, that your foot is parallel to the yardstick. You want your toes up. I like to call this the Grateful Dead step. For those of you who are in your 60s, you'll know what I'm talking about. From here, I'm going to test. I'm going to pick this foot up and I'm going to put it back down. I don't call that a good test. A good test is bringing the foot up and putting it down slowly. As you saw, I didn't move. Next part, toes up, put the toes down. We're still holding the corner. The next to last thing we're going to do is turn face front. So now my center line is in between the two yardsticks. And the last thing I'm going to do is totally relax the muscles, and I say this: drop your weapon. This is part of Tai Chi practice as well. When you're going through your form, there's always a part of you that's yang and full, and a part of you that's empty and resting. So I'm always looking for chances to rest, especially when I do the 108 form. When you move Tai Chi speed, that takes about 40 minutes to execute. So you want to find chances to rest. Therefore, I have tension when I'm holding this, and then when I say drop my weapon, make your arms like ropes. Let them just bounce off your thighs until they come to a settling point. Just want to point out one other thing to be mindful of when you're taking your step to establish your bow stance. Shifting, testing, turn, test, shift. So right here, when you go to bend your leg and advance, don't lean back to try to offset that foot. Since you know you're supposed to move forward, you're going to try to reach out here, and you're going to try to counterbalance that foot by leaning back. In Tai Chi Chuan, just like we read in the principle number 1, being suspended from your head means that you always want to maintain a vertical posture, good frame over your spinal column, if you will. So just make sure that when you get ready to do your step, that you sink, don't lean, sink. Then test the ice, put your foot down and face the front. Now the last thing I'm going to add to the work is what I call the Zen point. I mentioned it before. You're going to focus your attention straight ahead. Even though you're shifting and turning to the corners, you still want your mind to be out there in the distance, something at eye level. Part of your mind is figuring out how to root your feet, but staying focused out there is going to give you purpose and intention. So just to go through the drill one more time, I call this Bruce Willis drill number 1. So we're going to lock and load. If you're uncomfortable with that concept, just point your hands. I just need you to have something straight ahead. All right, so from here, shift to the left leg, and you can shift to the right because you got to do both sides. Test it, and again, it's a slow test. And look to make sure that you get back where you were. Turn 45 degrees to the corner, but I'm holding my Zen point. I'm going to pick this foot up, and again, if you need to look down for a moment, that's okay. Just get back to your Zen point. So pick it up, put it down. Then I'm going to shift to this other leg here. I'm still holding my Zen point, but I'm in the corner. I'm going to bend my left knee and kind of peel your foot off the floor up to the big toe. And where the knee is bent, pull the knee back and extend your foot forward. Straight ahead, toes up. Put the toes down, but hold this corner and keep your Zen point. Now make sure that your feet are parallel. Your left foot's parallel. This is at 45. Bring this back to the front, and then drop your weapon. Okay, so you're going to end up doing this on both sides. You would shift to the right, test it, turn 45 degrees, test it, shift, bend the right knee. extend it, test, touch, put your foot down, and face front. Drop your weapon. Now, one other consideration, when you take your step, I like to use the metaphor of testing the ice. In other words, when you move in Tai Chi Chuan from bow stance to bow stance, you're always rooted in one leg. Forget the hands for a second. You're rooted in one leg. This leg here, I'm going to touch the floor very lightly. All right? This is why I like to use the metaphor, test the ice. So when I pick my foot up, it's me saying like, well, is it safe to put my weight on the ice? Yeah, it's safe. Now the reason you want your toes up is because you're going to use the roundness of your heel to root, corkscrew, all right, to root into this foot. The other thing that I'm going to try to avoid, which again happens in the beginning until you get these attachments stronger, is what I call clumping. Clumping is like this. I pick this up and then I hit too hard. And the reason that a lot of folks in the beginning hit hard is because they don't have the strength in the attachment. So make sure that when you get ready to do your step, that you're low enough. You can touch the ice lightly, test it, touch it, putting it back down. I still haven't moved forward yet. I've decided that the ice is safe. Now I'll put my weight on it, square my hips. This is called sitting in your kwa. All right? So that's the basic bow stance. Now, I'm going to turn sideways because there's one other part of this that's kind of important to try to master. Now this is nothing more than geometry. When I go to take my step, I need to move forward somewhat, all right? If I'm standing high and I turn over here, test, touch, turn, test, touch, then I shift to this leg. If I'm standing high where my knee is almost locked, just maybe slightly bent, and if I bend this leg just a little bit, let me drop my weapon for a second. If I bend this leg just a little bit, it's not going to go very far forward if I'm going to try to make contact with the floor and not change my height. Because in Tai Chi Chuan, once you establish one height, you want to keep that one height for the whole form. So here's the geometry from high school. The deeper I sink in this leg, the longer this leg gets. If I'm high, it can only go this far forward. The further down I bend, the further forward I can go. So when I'm doing this work, I'm really exaggerating my bent knee. So if I come over here and turn and come over here, sinking down low, I can now advance straight ahead. Again, the problem is, or the challenge is trying to do this and hold that stance. Then put your toes down, face the front, and drop your weapon. So I'm not going to lie to you, when you're doing this work, you're going to feel a burn right about here. So doing it in the other direction without the hands, just so you can see the feet. If I shift to my left leg, right, and bend my right, extend, put it down, and turn, I'm good. So I shift, turn my foot, shift, bend my knee, touch, test, touch, root, square to the front. Okay, so that's the bow stance. Now we're going to look at that in a moving fashion, but I want to take some close-ups so you can see a little bit better. So let's look at the first Bruce Willis drill just a little closer at the feet. Again, start near the end of your yardsticks so that you will have the tool to help you know how far forward you can step and to keep your feet in line with the sticks. A lot of times I tell my students to imagine that you're walking on railroad tracks. So that's what these are going to help us think about when we take our steps. So doing the first Bruce Willis drill, I shift all my weight to one leg. I'm just favoring my left leg right now. I'm going to pick up my right foot slowly, put it back down slowly, and make sure that my body doesn't shift over this foot. I'm going to turn my foot and my center, you can't see it in the camera right now, turn my center 45 degrees. So if you could see my hands, I'd be pointing in the corner with my Bruce Willis pistol. I'm going to test this right here. So you're going to pick this foot up and put it back down slowly, right back to where it was before. So now you've protected principle 4, separation of yin and yang. Yang leg, yin leg. I'm going to shift all my weight to this leg now, so it's 100% here. This is when I'm going to take my little Grateful Dead step, meaning I'm going to bend my knee, peel your foot from the heel right to the big toe. Now where your knee is, let that be your swinging point. Advance your heel, touch the floor lightly. Again, testing it to see if that's safe. Again, I like to call this testing the ice. Making sure that I can put weight on it. Keep your toes up, parallel to the yardstick. Shift your weight, put the toes down, and then square your hips to the front. Okay, so that's the Bruce Willis drill in detail. Go to the other side, do both sides. I shift to my left leg, I pick up my right, testing slowly, put it back down where it was, keep back to your Wu Chi stance, turn 45 degrees to the corner, test it, pick it up, put it down, shift your weight to the right foot. Now again, make sure that you're sunk low. You gotta sink low because I need to move forward. Bend your left knee, peel the left heel off the floor, extend your heel, lightly touch the floor, pull the knee back and straighten this leg. So pick it up, test the ice, make sure the ice is safe. I think it is. So I'm going to put my weight on it and square my hips to the front. Okay, so the second Bruce Willis drill is going to be a little bit more difficult, and yet this particular drill is the most common transition when going from one bow stance to the other. I'm going to do the lock and load thing again, but when I talk about the gestures themselves, I'm going to tie it back to this particular drill so that you can see how they're related. For this one here, we're at the end of the yardsticks, and we're going to start in a stance where I've got all my weight on my right foot and I'm on the ball of my left toes. I'm always going to be looking out there when I do these drills, but for now, just to draw your attention to certain things to watch for, I'm not going to focus my attention on the Zen point. It's not that critical right now. I'm going to lock and load to this 90 degrees to the yardsticks. And again, I'm trying to get my center to control my feet and my hands. So from here, look underneath your arm and make sure that you're sunk low because it's a long step over those yardsticks. When you take your step, you're not going to step straight ahead because that would put you into a tightrope. Not good. You're also not going to step behind you, overshooting, or even if you happen to hit this just right, your stance when you fix this foot hasn't made any forward progress. So the work here is to step, if this is straight ahead, to the corner, 45 degrees to my corner. If I'm pointing over here, maybe a good point of reference is to say I'm going to step towards my left rear corner. That's the direction I'm going to move my left leg. So with that in mind, look at the yardstick, step to the corner lightly. Again, we're testing the ice. Toes are up. Test this, bring it up, put it back down, then put your toes down. Now as you put your toes down, you're going to pull your weapon. So as the toes go down, pull the weapon to the corner. Now you're 50-50 in both feet. The last part of this is, again, using your center to lock to your hands and move this foot. I'm going to pull the center to pull that foot and end up facing straight ahead. And just like before, drop my weapon. Totally relaxed. So let's look at that again. I'm going to lock and load towards this wall. Look underneath your arm. After a while you won't have to, you'll know exactly where to go. But this is going to make you feel the proper stance. Step to the left rear corner, toes are up. Test it. Put the toes down. As the toes go down, pull your weapon to the corner. Here's a checkpoint. Now I've got my 50-50 in both feet. I'm facing this corner. Last part is to pull this foot as I pull my hands. When I do this, the last thing I'm going to do is sit in my quad and drop my weapon, rooting in both my feet. So when you practice this, feel free again to look underneath, because it's really important for you to know where you're going. When you do this for real, you're not going to look back here. You're just going to take your step, okay? And you'll actually be holding your Zen point in the direction you're heading. Right now, we'll break the alignment. That's not cool, but it's more important to feel the proper stance. So I'm going to look underneath my arm. I'm going to sink deep in my left leg, reach back. So step to the right rear corner, toes up. Make sure that the ice is safe. Put the toes down. As the toes go down, that's when you're going to pull your weapon to the corner. When your foot hits, you should be 50-50. This is also where you think about the rooting. I'm corkscrewing into the earth. When I set this down, I root this foot. Whether, well, you corkscrew or have the roots like the tree. And over here, I had that in the beginning. So I'm 50-50. My last thing I'm going to do is pull my left foot and stop when it's 45. Notice that I'm going to move 45 degrees from the corner to the front. My left foot is going to cover that same distance. It's going to go from the side to the corner. So if I had my hands like this, one representing my weapon, and this is with my foot, these guys are going to move the exact same distance. So after the toes go down, you're 50-50, use your center, pull that left foot, and stop when it's 45 degrees to the corner. I'm now facing front, my weight's even in both feet, and here I drop my weapon. I'll take this from the other side so you can kind of match it if you're using the camera. If you want to match what I'm doing right here, this would be a good place to play with that. So I'm locking and loading. I'm going to sink in my right leg, reach behind me, toes up, test, touch. As the toes go down, pull to the corner, 50-50, pull the back foot, align your hands to the front, and drop your weapon. Right here, my hips are straight. In fact, when I do this at the end, you see me sink a little bit. This is called sitting in your quad, sitting in your hip. And this sets your roots. Okay, so stand to the rear of the sticks. Now, again, you're not going to be able to see my lock and load. Just focus your attention on the footwork. You're going to sink low in your stance. In order for me to move forward, I have to be low in the stance. You're going to step back across, point your toes parallel to the yardsticks. Pick this foot up, put it back down, touching the ground lightly, test the ice. Put the toes down. As the toes go down, you can't see it, but I'm moving to the corner with my hands. My weight is now 50-50. Use your center to pull that back foot 45 degrees, and when you're forward, straighten your hips directly in front of you. Sit in your quad. Start at the end of the yardsticks. Post in your left leg. My right leg is bent. That's the yin leg. All right. Make sure that you sink in the left leg. You're going to reach across with your right foot over the yardstick, toes parallel to the stick. Bring the foot up. Put it back down slowly. Test the ice. Toes up. Put the toes down and bring your weapon to the corner. My weight's 50-50. Use your center to pull the left foot. Sit in your quad. Straighten your pelvis directly in front of you. When you do that last little sit in your quad, you should feel the chi root your feet strong into the earth. Taking it from the other side. I'm posted in my right leg now. I'm going to reach across with my left, touch the ice, think about it, feel safe, toes down, pull your hands to the corner, face front, pull the back foot, sit in the quad, and root in your feet.